Today on Gallbladder Gone, Now What? I'm excited to welcome Cindy Sellers, a leader in holistic health and nutrition with decades of experience helping people heal physically, emotionally, and mentally. She has studied Ayurvedic medicine, colon hydrotherapy, herbalism, iridology, and nutrition, and has developed programs that integrate these approaches to support true whole body wellness. As the creator of Angel Farm's Cleansing and Rejuvenation Center in Hawaii, she helps people transform their health through programs designed to detoxify the body, restore balance, and address the emotional and mental blocks that affect physical healing. Today, we will explore her insights on healing the body after digestive changes like gallbladder removal and how to reclaim energy, vitality, and well being. So,
Gallbladder gone. Now what? Let's heal from the inside out.
Welcome to Gallbladder Gone, Now What? The podcast for Christian women navigating life after gallbladder removal. Hosted by Jamie McCrivey, holistic nutritionist, wife, boy mum, grandma, and a firm believer in God's design for lasting health. Did you know that over 1.2 million Americans have their gallbladders removed every year, and that the majority of them are women? Even more eye-opening is that all gallbladder issues are digestive issues. And poor digestion is at the root of up to 80% of all disease, including hormone imbalances and weight struggles. While Jamie isn't a doctor and this podcast isn't medical advice, she shares real solutions rooted in research, experience, and God's Word. Let's get practical, biblical, and real, one step at a time.
I'm so excited to have you here. I found your book when my mom was very sick. Unfortunately, she did pass away, but your book left a lasting impression on me, and I thought I have to reach out to you and and interview you because you have such a wealth of information in this book. So let's start out with what started you on this journey. What made you want to go into this field?
Aloha, and it's nice to be with you today. Uh, yeah, I started this actually in southern Utah, which is where you are, but it began. Actually, you know how our stories begin in the beginning, but the trauma that brought me to my intent was I was in a car wreck in Idaho in 1983, in which my back actually bent in the middle. And so from 83 to 89, I lived in hellacious pain. And the only thing the doctors told me they could do was to break my back and put two titanium pins in it. And that was supposed to keep me out of all this pain. But I'm like, I am not going to let you break my back when it's bent. It's not going to happen. And so but it set me on the journey to learn, herbalism and iridology and, all these different things in order to help myself. And then in 89, I'm laying on my living room floor in a neck brace, and I was really pissed off at God. Rah, it's not supposed to be like this. How am I going to take care of my family?
Yeah.
And I'm not getting up till I have an answer, and I got an answer. And so I started it, and sure enough, 10 days later, my back was straight and I was done. And actually went and had x-rays because I'm like, how could this be just gone after all these years? And even in the x-ray, the injury was gone. And that's when I started studying quantum physics, because that is the definition of a miracle, which is a change in perception.
Absolutely. I love
Yeah,
that story because, like most of us, we start our mess becomes our message, right? And so
yeah,
it starts
yep,
out being angry, and then we come to our knees because we've tried
yep,
everything we feel. And then suddenly we're like, oh, I should probably ask God, the creator of all the things,
yep.
and start listening to him. So, you have a quote in the book that I love. It says, everything possible should be done to avoid digestion problems for good health. And I have found this begins with education. And so that's what I wanted to start with here. And I love in your book, you say it's on, you talk about some fun facts. So, the earth has given of herself so we can have this experience. We are the same elements as on a chemistry chart, except we have a lot more energy and information. The average human body contains enough sulfur to kill all the fleas on an average dog, enough carbon to make 900 pencils, enough potassium to fire a toy cannon, enough fat to make 7 bars of soap, enough phosphorus to make 2,300 match heads, and enough water to fill a 10-gallon tank. And I
Amazing.
love that. Our bodies are so amazing.
They are.
So the women who are listening here today, they've been through a lot of pain and a lot of confusion, especially around after they've had their gallbladders removed or are heading in that direction. So from your years of helping people, both through your work and your book, and at your retreat center, what do you see happening before the gallbladder even becomes diseased and needs removed?
So, interesting that the gallbladder removal is epidemic right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're, because of the kind of work that I do, where every day I'm looking in a tank of what has been inhabiting the temple of the body, and I get to see stuff. And in the last maybe 6 to 7 years, I've seen more rancid oil slips than I did in all the years of 35 years I've been doing this. And
Okay.
so, go
Hold
ahead.
that thought real quick, because I don't think people know that you're talking about what you're talking about in the tank.
Okay, so because part of the program with Angel Farms, we do a colon hydrotherapy process,
Mhm.
but not colonics. And it's important to understand the difference between the two because it's kind of an easier way to explain the way the physical body works in a trauma situation. So let's say we go out to Crowshaw's Pies, which is my favorite in St. George,
Uh-huh.
and we have a nice meal, and then we sit around and talk for like 40 minutes or so, and then we go out into a car, and somebody smashes into our car. We have some kind of a news of some kind of a trauma, and because our digestive system is 85% energy consuming, that's why we're not supposed to swim after we eat,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. Our body goes into an immediate fight or flight response, and it actually happens at 238 miles per hour. You can't even catch that thought. And so the soft tissue of the digestive tract, so if everyone would run their tongue up the inside of your mouth,
Mhm.
that's the same tissue all the way to your rectum. Okay, so that soft tissue, it actually grab in the digestive tract will actually grab that meal and creates what we call a pocket. Okay, and then this is a great place now for yeast and candidas and parasites and worms and metals and all kinds of stuff to host inside of the body. And then because the tissue is stretched, it causes what's called autointoxication, where the body literally toxifies itself because it's stretched tissue and can seep through the bowel wall, right? And
Mhm.
so, but the miracle of this tissue is it heals in only 72 hours. I call it a resurrection.
I
And what
love
that
that.
means is if you've ever bitten your tongue or your cheek really bad and we made hamburger out of it, and
Mhm.
then you notice in about 3 days it's all healed up. That's
Yeah.
how fast that tissue heals if we give it the right opportunity. Okay, so the cleanse that we do is very gentle, where the water just moves in and out of the colon, and every day we go over, this is the organ of the day, this is the thoughts that cause them harm, this is how we're going to resurrect it and stop doing that stuff, and then we change it up, and then we literally watch people lose their wrinkles on the left side of their face before they do the right. The pores tighten, the eyes lift, everything, hair darkens. It's an amazing thing to watch when we rejuvenate on such a powerful level. And so, but colonics is a forced pressure into the colon. And
Mm.
so somebody else puts it in, not you. You're laying on like a massage table and there's forced water in your colon, and you can't release out your own pace. You have to release it somebody else's, and you can't pee when you need to either. So therefore you're not addressing the bladder, the kidneys, the hormones, and all of the many functions of the kidneys as well, and the urinary tract system. And so you have to be able to release at your own pace, because most of our issues in our life are from other people's will imposed upon us and not our own, or a trauma. And
Mhm.
so how's the body really going to release if it's under trauma? Right? It
Yeah,
won't. It just
absolutely.
won't do it. And so it needs to be a gentle, loving, powerful process. And my youngest is 3 and my oldest is 97. And we just had a 4-year-old little boy from Kauai who came in with 4-stage lymphatic cancer, and he's cancer free. So
Oh,
he's so
I
cute.
love
He's just
that.
adorable. Gained all weight and just a healthy little boy. But it's because it's very gentle and he gets to release at his own pace. And so I forgot where I was going with all that, but the
But
difference
we,
between
we just,
colonics and colon hydrotherapy, yeah.
yeah, because you were saying you look in the tank and what
Right.
you're
Oh,
seeing
thank
is
you.
the oil slicks for the gallbladder.
Right.
Yeah.
So every day we lift up after people are finished with their cleanse and they learn volumes of information here. Then we lift up in what they've been laying on, and in a big tank underneath, you can see what has been inhabiting the temple of the body. And mostly the oil slicks have been insane. And a lot of it has to do with people taking oil supplementation. So that
Mm,
would be coconut oil in their smoothies and their coffees, and fish oil and hemp oil and flax oil, and you know how the seed oils have wiggled their way into our diet as well. And
mhm.
what happens when we add oil on oil in a warm environment, it rancifies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there we have rancid oil. And boy, is it hard to get out of the digestives. It just gets coated with it. And then we got all these other problems. And yeah, that's a big problem that has caused a lot of problems with the gallbladder removals in young people, especially because they're overloading the liver with the gallbladder and the liver with oil. And if you think about it, the gallbladder is only as small as your little pinky finger. So if everybody kind of looked at their pinky finger for a moment, that's the size of your gallbladder that sits in the middle of your liver. And if you do more oil than that every day, and that includes what you might get in an avocado, or you might get in olives, or you might get having real salmon or fish that you naturally get oil in them, which is great, coconut, but you don't do coconut oil. Because I've lived in Hawaii since '97 now, and live with, I don't know, 30 coconut trees just on our property. And still to this day, and I've asked lots of elders too, have we ever seen concentrated oil natural in nature for us to eat, and even in coconuts? And the answer is no. Only mankind processes oil,
Yep.
squishes a lot of fish or a lot of coconuts to get oil, and then call it natural. It's not, and it blows out the gallbladder.
Okay. That's funny that you say that because several years ago, I was on a walk and I was doing my prayer walk and I walked right under this pecan tree and I just felt God say to me, I put this in a hard shell for a reason. And it's like, oh, we're supposed to work to get it out. And so
Yep.
we're not supposed to have them all shelled and just eating them by the handful and doing all.
Right.
There's a reason. And I remember back when I was a kid around the holidays, right? You would get this big bag of nuts and you have to work and crunch and crack. So you were getting maybe a quarter cup after about an
Right.
hour of work. And it's like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. Sure makes good pecan pie, those. I miss those in
Oh,
in Utah.
oh yeah, absolutely.
We got mac nuts though. It makes up for it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Those are delicious. So the body rarely breaks down overnight. And so there are patterns long before the symptoms. So from your perspective, what kinds of emotional, lifestyle, and energetic imbalances tend to show up before gallbladder distress really becomes a crisis?
So the liver is actually, I'll talk to you just for a few minutes about the liver itself. So
Okay.
the liver is the largest internal organ that weighs up to 5 pounds. Okay. It does 535 different functions for us, which is a phenomenon. Okay. It's actually our body alchemist. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it can turn this into that as the body needs it. So it's just such an amazing organ. It also is the most emotionally sensitive organ.
Mhm.
Okay. And so if we and the issue that hurts it the most is called anger. And so when we're angry, and we literally take it. I like to tell people that you're literally taking a 2x4 and smashing your liver every time you're angry. And
Mhm.
then I have people come in and they say, well, I help people with anger management, so I let them scream into a pillow. And I'm like, guess what? Every time you scream into a pillow and every time you're angry, you deplete your own immune system by 5 hours. And what you can
Mhm.
be exposed to in a 5 hour period because you just depleted your immune system can be not very fun.
Yeah.
So even if you're at the airport, it's nice to be nice instead of angry at a when a flight's late, or at a grocery store if something's going wrong with something. You cannot be angry and be blowing up at people, or even the politics. You can't be angry about stuff like that because you're the one that will hurt from it, not whoever you think that you agree to disagree with, which is a better way than being disagreeable, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
the liver is going to be such a massive teacher. And I'm going to tell you a story. Is that recently I had a guy that came in from Las Vegas who was just got put on a liver transplant list. And so when I picked him up at the airport, which I don't do that often, but I just happened to be in town, I'm going to pick him up. And because knowing what his symptom was, I said, on the way home, on the way to out here to Angel Farms, I said, "So who's pissing you off and making you angry?" And he said, "Oh, President Trump." And I said, "Oh, do you know him?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Does he know you personally?" "No." And I said, "Then why are you willing to lose a liver over your anger at somebody who doesn't even know your name? Isn't that kind of silly?" And he was like, and I said, "So here we begin. So every day I'm going to give you reasons why you can send blessings to President Trump instead of hate him so that we can save your liver."
Yeah.
And so every day, I bring up something that's wonderful. He should be able to be thankful for this or that or this. And he was. And so by the ninth day, I said, "So how you feeling about President Trump?" And he said, "Well, I have reasons to send him blessings." I'm like, "Great." And then I said, "So how you feeling about, say, Marjorie Taylor Greene?" And he went ballistic again. And I said, "You know what? You just took a 2x4 and smashed your liver again. And do you know her? No. Does she know you? No." And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Did I do that again?" I'm like, "Yes." And so I said, "So now this happens with, you have to be loving and blessing up your contractor, the person who cuts you off on the highway, your ex-partner, your neighbor, your whoever. You cannot afford to expect a liver to do its 535 functions for you properly if you're going to live your life in anger instead of love." And in Hawaii, we call it the beauty road of loving, or the Hawaiian word is the Nani Ka'ala road, where you walk the beauty road of loving. So if you're going to be not loving anybody, it doesn't even matter who they are. It matters that you're the one that said, "I'm the one I've been waiting for. And if not me, if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? Are you going to do this loving thing maybe later? What if later doesn't come?
Yeah.
What if you do have to get the liver transplant, and then you have to have, and it doesn't work because people die, right?" And
Hmm.
so, or it's rejected or whatever. And so you're better off keeping your own. And so working on your anger, which is not that hard to do. We have a whole class on the sixth day about anger. And here's what and I'll walk you through some of that, what we do too. But the gallbladder is a little bit different of the smoldering anger that can be from, when you were a kid and mad at your parents, or your teacher that in third grade spanked you, or whatever that might be. The gallbladder is more of a piss of a hit of a woo, this kind of like anger that just woo, and then can get back up a little bit. So it's an aggressive, bitter anger that causes the gallbladder to have a little bit of a hiccup. And
Okay.
again, your gallbladder is designed to break down concentrated fats in the liver. And so when you lose your gallbladder, it's very difficult to eat high concentrated fat foods, or you have diarrhea and you have digestive issues. So you have to be kind of run it a little bit throughout the day. Doesn't mean that your liver doesn't produce bile. It just doesn't have a sac to contain it if you lose your gallbladder. So you want to make sure that you back off. How do you send blessings instead of anger when somebody cuts you off on the highway? How do you send blessings to your ex-partner who might be raising your kid differently than you do, right? So,
Yeah. Hmm.
or your contractor who didn't do a good job, or the neighbor who cut down the tree by the fence, or whatever. You have to look at, like, how do I be the one I've been waiting for, and be the one that's here to change the world with my greater love and my appreciation and my hope for the world that God wants me to be in charge of, that I can love more than I do anything else. You want to, if you're not loving, you're wasting your time here.
Yeah.
Just wasting your
It,
time.
it reminds me of, there's, a scripture that talks about like do unto others is basically what
Yep.
it is. And I
Yep.
remember I'd heard that scripture all growing up and stuff, but a couple of years ago it kind of hit me that it's a boomerang. What you put out will come back. And so we think we're hurting the other person, or it's just coming back to us.
Always.
And I realize that, you work with I know that you work with a lot of women, and we often carry like this unique physical and emotional load. So, do you think that has to do, have you noticed it happening more to women? And then, like, how can we encourage that with the female body to shift that, because it kind of makes us more vulnerable to this?
Well, I've seen a lot of men with gallbladder issues too. So,
Mhm.
I think that it's all about recognizing, how do we change our anger into ascendant blessings, and how do we forgive? So forgiveness, there's a lots of talk about forgiveness, and the liver is really when we're doing the liver process, we're really talking about forgiveness. And I use a lot of examples, I like the one about the Amish people
Mhm.
in Pennsylvania who when they had seven little kids that were killed by a milkman in their community, and the milkman took his life. They actually made a movie about this called Amazing Grace, which is awesome. And what did they do? Within a half hour after all this happened, they were at the lady's house of the wife, knocking on her door and say, how can we help you? And she's like, what are you doing here? My husband just killed your children. Don't you hate me? And they said, no, you didn't do it. Now you're a young mother with three children. And the only way we're going to get through this is to do it together. And their forgiveness went worldwide. But we want to recognize that true forgiveness is when you recognize that everything is God, and everything is a reason for everything. And we're the ones that came to change it with our forgiveness and our love. And we can't say, I'll forgive you, but I won't forget. That's not forgiveness. Or I understand why I'm going to forgive them because I understand why they don't live up to their full potential. That's not true forgiveness. True forgiveness is when you really recognize in the big picture, there's nothing to forgive, because what did you get out of it? Who
Mhm.
are you because of it, not despite it? How do you change your life to go, I'm not going to do that anymore, so I don't have to draw those situations to me anymore, because I'm going to be the force to be reckoned with, called love. I want to turn myself back into God. I want to, like Jesus said, this is my desire, that you love yourself and one another, even as I have loved you. And we want to, put the self-loving part of in the equation, and love ourselves enough to say, I'm not going to do anything outside of love anymore. And then you're going to be on the path to great health and vitality.
I love that. And that was, I think, a hard thing for me to learn as I was going through my own journey of healing my liver. And it was, I had a lot of anger, and I would say things like, I forgive, but I didn't feel it. And
Right.
and so it's hard to be like, oh, I'm forgiving, but I'm like, it's still there. But one of the things I noticed is that when I started taking care of me and
Mhm.
loving me, you can only pour out what is already in.
Right.
Right? And that was a big challenge for me, because I I kind of felt like if I forgave, then I was saying it was okay.
Right.
And it's not, but it's more like God makes it okay. God,
Right.
all things will be okay. And so, like, kind of learning to go through that is, would you have any suggestions for women who've been maybe betrayed or really hurt, and they can say the words, because sometimes you can't even say the words, but maybe they can say the words, but they're not feeling it. What would
Right.
you say to that?
So I've been doing iridology now for over 35 years, and still to this day, I've never looked in somebody's beautiful eyes, even yours, and saying, it's not seeing a goddess, or a God looking back at me. And
Mhm.
so, if we were to look at everyone that has ever hurt us in our whole life, and we can look at them, if we see them as a child of God, even if they don't, doesn't matter if they don't, they're not the ones that are working on themselves. We are, right? So if
Mhm.
we can see that if they would have known more of who they were when they did those things that would cause themselves or you harm in any way, would you be able to forgive them even if they didn't know who they were? And the answer is, most 99% of the people here just forgive them, because like they don't know who they are. And maybe I'm on somebody's anger list too, and maybe because I didn't know who I was, and I pray that they will forgive me, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Even if they don't, that doesn't really matter. But you can hope that they don't hurt from things that you did when you didn't know who you were. Because all life is a process where we're in a journey of who we're not, where we don't know our worth, and we don't know our importance, and we don't know how very loved we are. We don't know our absolute goodness and divine perfection. We don't know our wisdom we carry, which is immense. We don't know how important and wanted we are to all the lives we bless up in every minute we have a chance, even if it's over broccoli and somebody's depressed at the grocery store and you give them a smile that lifts them. That's part of your job of the day. And so if we don't understand that we're here to do the loving process, we're here to turn ourselves back into God. We have to go through the journey of who we're not until
Mhm.
we wake up and turn into who we are. And that's the traumas that bring us to our intent. That's a kick our butt sometimes until we can go, woo, that's not who I am anymore, I'm done. And then we go, how do I love here? What would Jesus do here? How would compassion work here? How would joy work here? what would God do here to love when it doesn't look like it's easy to love? And I'm going to do it anyway because God said I could. And I said I would do my best to do that. Right. So we
Yes.
have to turn it around.
I love that because I just literally did a podcast about in Matthew, we talk about Jesus calls Andrew and Peter and they straightway leave their nets. And one time I was doing my scripture studies years ago, and it just felt like, what are my nets? And sometimes those nets that I'm burdened down with, he's like, just drop them, just let them go. I
That's nice.
got it, and so his burden is easy and light. And so
Right.
we don't have to carry that. And I feel like sometimes if we people say, put them down, but you're actually the phrase I love to say is you put them on the altar so they can then be altered.
Right.
Like let God take care of it because we don't have all the facts either. We
Right.
don't know someone's past and they're hurting. And so this all manifests. It's so interesting to me in the body. These
Right.
emotions are in the body. So people come to me often and they're like, "Well, I want to talk about food." I'm like, "That's great, but that's like step two." Well, I have four phases in my program, but the first one is remember who you are
Right.
and learn how to rethink
Right.
first.
First.
Then the food and the water and the exercise and the sleep and all the things really help that. But we can focus on those things and then forget about the emotions and our identity.
Right.
And then we're still lost. We're still
And
hurting.
I have people all the time who come in here with such food prison, I call it,
Hmm.
where they're down to eating six foods, and we prepare these beautiful, organic, locally grown vegetable soups every day according to my doctrine of food signatures. And
Uh-huh.
so every day we're in the organ of the body. There's the nutrients that feed those organs are fed to them every day. It's just amazing. And but the first thing on these people who have whittled out to eating almost nothing, the first thing they ask is what's in it, and I'm like, has that question help you be well? And the answer is always no. And I said, then stop asking and trust the process,
Yeah.
because the people can eat really good food, but if they're not absorbing it, that's not going to do that good of a process. You have to absorb it, and
Mhm.
you have to be able to absorb the information, because there is a connection between the food that we get from our aina, or our land,
Mhm.
and the information that we get from it as well. So we get the information like the rain. It's raining beautifully right here, right now. Or we get the rainbows, and we get the moon, and we get the bird song and the bees and the nature and the environment around that is actually accumulated in the information in our food. And so
Mhm.
if we're not absorbing it in our gut, then we're not absorbing the information that we're getting from our land around us. What do we need to be careful with? What do we need to, the body just adjusts when it's able to absorb the nutrients and the information it receives. And so, and the number one reason people go to the hospital is the gut issues.
Yeah,
Number
absolutely.
one. Yeah. So and we know that they're lost in information as well when they're not absorbing nutrients, and they're hurting all the time in their belly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that I had one client I worked with, and her expectations were just kind of to get some energy back and stuff. But anyway, after we worked with her, she didn't realize it's not normal to hurt all
Oh
the time,
yeah, I
right?
see that all the
And
time.
so I think people are just kind of resigned to like, oh, eating is painful, it's confusing,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
frustrating, and it's not meant to be. It's meant to be a joy,
Yep, it is.
right? But
You know what I call that when people do that, and their face, they have what's called a miracle face,
uh-huh.
because their brain doesn't know what to do without the pain. So they have this adorable face, like the brain's like all of a sudden like, what do I do? I've been doing this for so long, 20 years, whatever, and it's gone. It has
Yeah,
to
it's almost like you
reroute.
have energy left over. Like, what am I going to focus on now? I'm
Yeah,
so used to trying to dig through the
that's
craziness.
great.
So, so after people get their gallbladder removed, they're still feeling bloated, they're still feeling tired or constipated. And so, what can we do to get our health back? Because we know that it really just wasn't the gallbladder, right? It was what led up to that. So we kind of have to back out. So what would your thoughts be?
That's an interesting one because I always see that stuff disappear here at Angel Farms, and I just had a lady named Andressa. I love her name so much that I named my truck after her, by the way.
Oh, I love
Um,
it.
but she came in gallbladder going off, pain, came back from the hospital, and she's doing absolutely fantastic and keeps her gallbladder, but she's just the most current one. But the best thing that my recommendation would be first, drink a lot of water. Don't put stuff in water because then it's not spilled water anymore. So you can't put lemon in water and tea in water, and work on a gallon of water a day to the best of your ability. And then chew your food till it's liquid or you lose the game because you don't have any teeth anywhere in your body. So if you're not chewing till liquid, if you can't chew up the string of a celery, don't swallow it, spit it out, and be proud of yourself. These things cannot be put into the system when we don't have any teeth after it leaves our mouth. And taking time to get all your taste buds. You have brand new taste buds every 10 days. And
Mm.
so that's how important the information station is to your body, that you get all the information. So the liver knows what's coming, and the spleen and the pancreas and the kidneys and the brain all knows via the information on the tongue. And then I'd like to tell people to have a big variety. So every day, this is what the program that we teach here is: you do 7 different vegetables, 2 fruit, 2 protein, 1 carb, a gallon of water, and a lot of love. And then your body gets a good building blocks, and the rest of it we call gravy. But interesting, how many people are confused about even carbohydrates, right?
Hmm.
So I like to ask people, how many of you believe that a corn is a carb, or I mean, is a vegetable? It's not. How
Hmm.
many believe a banana is a fruit? It's not. How
Hmm.
many believe a potato is a carb? It's not. And it does mean it's a starchy vegetable, but it's not a carbohydrate. And how do you know what is a carb? Because you have to look at the inflammation going on in the body. So when people have bloating and stuff, we know that there's inflammation going on. And so what we want to do is back off on the carbohydrates. So what is a carb? Is anything that grows like a grass. So a banana is a seed of a grass, so it's a carbohydrate. Okay, a corn is a seed of a grass, so it's not a vegetable. It's a carb. Rice, quinoa, rye, oats, all of these are the seed of a grass. So it breaks down via amylase in the mouth. And a potato is a root vegetable, so it breaks down differently in the small intestine via different enzymes that the pancreas produces. Even though the pancreas does produce 1.5 liters of amylase to break down carbohydrates in your mouth, so they are important to us, but just not overdoing it, because the pancreas also releases beautiful things to break down inflammation in the body. So if you're not overdoing it on carbohydrates, you're allowing the pancreas to work better and break down your inflammation, and then you can add a little bit of carbs back. But you just want to be really careful with carbs, and that helps a lot of people with bloating,
Oh,
because you're helping the pancreas not have to break down all the carbs and still work on breaking down your inflammation. And you
okay.
have to eat smaller meals, like cup your hands, and then your hands cupped over that liquefied, all your body can properly break down in one sitting. And you know what I found out really cool
Huh.
recently? In Japan, they have a prayer over their food where it translates to 80/20,
Oh,
which
yep.
really means they're 80% empty or full, 20% empty. And then that gives the stomach plenty of ways to move, to break down all your nutrients, including your proteins, which is the hydrochloric acid, and breaking down your fats, but in the bottom part of the stomach, which is where the gallbladder is supposed to be releasing the bile to break down fats in the lower part of the stomach before it leaves the system, the stomach. So but yeah, it's all about absorbing too, but really we have to look at how we're enjoying our food, and we have to understand it, so we don't eat the wrong things when our body's telling us it can't have that right now.
And I love that you use the word right now. It doesn't mean not ever. It
Right.
means not now.
Right.
Right. And so when I'm working with people and we're looking at the food that way and they're like, oh, I'm like, no, 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 just until your body's capable of handling it again.
Correct. Correct.
And because God has created things so cyclically, right? So there's good times for it, and then there's less good times.
Right.
And all his foods are good,
Right.
just in their proper proportions. And you have another quote in the book that I love. It says, God's love is unconditional. God doesn't love us because we are lovable or because we make God feel good. He loves us because God is love. And
Mhm.
that's a huge part of your message in there, is that as we radiate this love and even receive this love and receive food as love, receive water as love, receive emotions as love, it can start to overpower that fear and that anxiety and the resentment and not feeling seen. And so if someone has been struggling, maybe they've had parents that didn't help them feel loved or in a relationship, what do we do to start feeling love? Like that we're loved?
Yeah. So the best thing you can do is start by loving yourself,
Hmm.
because it's even more difficult to say I'm just going to love God, but like where does that come from? And so if you just start loving yourself, so the more I found out about the body and what the organs and what they do, the more I fell in love with God. And so, but loving yourself is really the biggest thing you can do, because when you love yourself, you come from a different space where you start to channel God's love through your crown chakra and out your heart, and you don't need it from other people, so you become unneedy. So then you're able to love unconditionally everywhere you go and not like need it back from somebody else.
Yeah.
And so therefore your love can continue to grow and grow and grow. And it's really important to understand presence. And so, you just brought up this thing called fear. So this is something I want to talk to, because this is a gut issue. Okay. And so fear, first of all, definition of fear, and I do have this on a drop down menu on my website, by the way, on angelfarms.com, but it's called Angel Instant Fear Release Technique, and I'd recommend anybody who has autoimmune system issues got to look at this and print it up and put it in their purse and in their pocket and take it with them everywhere. But what is fear? FEAR, fantasized emotion appearing real. And if we were to understand in the human body where is our fear center, we want to pretend like we're getting into the front seat of a 12-story roller coaster, right? And you
Mhm.
know how has the barnacle hold you down, and you go and the train goes click click click, and I found that out so the train doesn't go backwards. And you
Uh-huh.
go up 5 stories, click click click, 10 stories, click click click, 12 stories, click click click, and you're about to drop 12 stories down. Boom! Where do you feel that in your body?
Oh gosh, right.
In your gut, right? In your
Yeah.
because and remember that fear is contracting and love is expanding. So when you know this, that your fear center is in your gut, you can use it as a tool. Okay, so
Mhm.
whenever you have the energy of fear, worry, whatever that you want to stop whatever you're doing, put your hand on your belly and raise your belly with your breath. So inhale, belly goes out, and exhale, belly goes in, and do it a few times. And what you're doing is you're relaxing your diaphragm and you're stopping the adrenaline fight or flight response, which is so cool to know, because then you stop your adrenaline overload. When you need your adrenals, you need them and you don't want them to be spent. Okay. And then you ask yourself 5 questions. So right now, what do we hear in front of us? So everybody can pay attention to what you hear in your environment, including me. And I hear a big, beautiful waterfall in the back. What do you see? I see this beautiful goddess in front of me and your beautiful painting and stuff. And what do you smell? What do you taste in your mouth? What do you feel your clothing on your body? And you may be sitting or your feet on the floor. And in this very moment, what do we have to fear? What's the answer?
Nothing.
Nothing. Because when we're in our senses of hearing, sight, smell, taste, and feeling and present, there's no fear, because you're not regretting yesterday and you're not worrying about tomorrow. There's no fear, because what is fear? When you flip yourself into non-existence, called fantasized emotion appearing real. And so the more you unravel fear out of your gut, the better your system's going to be working, because you don't want to live in fear. You want to live in love, and love is the healer even of the belly, right? So we
Absolutely.
want to, and then I like to have a follow with this mantra is where I am, God is, and where God is, I am. Because there's an ancient passage that said, I was regretting the past and fearing the future, which I know nobody ever does, right?
Right.
Suddenly, my Lord was speaking, my name is I am. When we live in the past with its mistakes and regrets, it's hard. God said, my name is not, I'm not there. My name is not, I was. When you live in the future with its problems and fears, I'm not there either. My name is not, I will be. But if you live in this moment, it is not hard. I am here. My name is, I am.
I
So when
love
we
it.
stay present with our senses, it's really easy to unravel the gut and help it work better. And then we're not using our fear center to contract. We're using our belly to absorb and love. right? Which
Yeah.
is amazing.
I love that. And I often tell my clients it's a practice, right? So
Mhm.
you're not going to nail it the first day and become
Right.
completely present all the time. But it's that thing I like to think about is like the fruit the scriptures talk about the fruits of the spirit are love, peace, temperance, joy. When you're not feeling those fruits, then I love the coming back to this. And you can, where am I? What do I see, smell, hear, taste, touch? Bring that peace back in
Mm,
because God's here. He's here. He's part of the process.
right.
And he created our bodies and he created our minds. And so I know for me there was a time when I got was really sick and I was angry and I was hurt and I was confused and I was in the middle of Iowa when I got was having such excruciating pain. This was before like hardly internet and I was told I needed to get my gallbladder out and I really hesitated, but I had no support. I had nothing. I was in such pain.
Yeah.
And so I ended up doing it. And then I didn't get better. I just, they didn't tell me to change anything. And so I continued to get worse and angry and frustrated, trying to do all the right things and it wasn't working. Anyway, I had to work through that. But one of the things that I had to work through is I know God gave me my body, but I kind of had this guilt about getting my gallbladder out and I wanted it back. And I wanted it back and I wanted to take better care of it. So, what would you say, like women who are living without gallbladders, can we have a normal, healthy, happy life?
Absolutely, because the liver still makes bile. It just lives in bile ducts and just doesn't have a sac to catch it. So you just have to adjust your fat content to be a little bit more spread out through the day, and it works. It'll your liver can still handle it and will still help support that because you got to have natural fat in your diet anyway to be healthy. That's why so many foods have it in
Yeah.
natural in nature. You just don't want to do oil supplementation or add it because that's going to cause the rest of the liver to have more problems as well. And of course, coat rancid oil in your digestive tract, which is not a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love that because, we don't there was a little bit of guilt there that I had for many years and I know some of the women are like, so frustrated about it. So your message is really a message of hope is what I feel like. And what would you say to a woman here who's just discouraged and doesn't know what to do? Where to start?
Uh, you know, you mean with the gallbladder or just overall
Let's just say
working on
overall.
overall? So,
And digestion, a little focus on
yeah.
digestion there, yeah.
So I would say first start by drinking more water, back off coffee, caffeine, because why be careful with that, especially if you have digestive issues? Because caffeine has tannic acid in it. Tannic acid is what we use to tan leather. And
Mm.
when we do caffeine on an empty stomach, which is what many people do, the tannic acid in caffeine mixes with the hydrochloric acid in the stomach, and the two acids harden in the stomach lining and prevent the body from properly breaking down proteins.
Mm.
Uh-oh. That's why people their skin gets thinner and it bruises and breaks easily. All kinds of stuff starts happening. Their hair gets thinner. There's lots of things that happen when we cripple our body's ability to break down protein, which is the only job of the hydrochloric acid. Okay. And then it also kills your bowel flora. And you have a large intestine that's 5 to 6 feet long that's specifically designed for bacterial breakdown, which means if you're killing it with the caffeine, how are you going to do the final breakdown with bacteria and particles to get through the bowel wall and nurture your organs? It's not going to happen.
Mhm.
Okay. And so be careful with caffeine. Always do protein on your belly first and then follow with the bowel flora in the evening if you choose to do caffeine, but be careful with it and don't and make sure you have it and it doesn't have you, which means if you have a headache when you came off it, it had you and you didn't have it. That means it
Yeah.
became an addiction. So you want to be non-addicted to anything except water and loving, and then you can overdo all of that and be just great, right? And and I do tell people to be careful with oils, of course, which we've talked about. Be very careful with them because we already get them naturally in our diet, and we don't want to be adding oil. Like people are saying, "Oh, you need to take fish oil for your brain health," and I'm like, "Tell me, when I hold a brain in my hand, it weighs 3 pounds. If I dehydrate, it weighs only 8 ounces. How is that oil instead of water?" excuse me, but your brain needs water to be healthy, not oil.
Mhm.
And all of these are just like, myths that are put out into our environment to be healthy, and it causes more harm than it does good. And I do think people need to take more time to quiet their mind, okay? And I found that the easiest way for people to learn meditation is to hum,
Mhm.
because the sound distracts the mind. So if their mind is going cranky cranky, or even if they're trying to sleep and their mind's trying to think of this conversation they're going to have tomorrow at their job, or this conversation they didn't have when they wanted to, blah blah blah, then you got it,
Mhm.
and then the brain quiets and you can hum it out until you're really good at meditation. Humming really is the great way to. I teach even kids how to meditate by just humming.
Yeah.
And and spending some time quiet, a couple of days a month, just to give yourself even a half a day of not watching TV, not reading a book, not talking to anybody, but just quiet, and telling your brain, shh, shh, we're not talking right now, we're just being quiet, is a great way to connect deeper with your body, your mind, and your spirit, because then it works better to be when you're not having all the noise going on, and you're being better to be guided when it's necessary. And I'll tell you an example of what it means when you're present and you can be guided. I was in the airport a little while ago, and there was a plane that we were supposed to be flying back to Hawaii, and all of a sudden we're all in the line waiting for the to get loaded on at 4 o'clock to leave, and nobody's there. And I see this lady in the front of the line getting madder and madder and madder, and I'm like, whoa, if that lady doesn't calm down, she's going to be really hurting her adrenals here, because you can just see it happening especially when you've been doing what I've been doing for so long. I'm like, oh my God. So what does God tell me? Because why does God tell me this? Because I'm quiet and I'm listening and just observing. I'm not thinking about anything else, like why is the plane like that? Doesn't matter to me. It's just present. So God tells me you have to do something about that. And I said, why me? Well, I'm the only one in the whole line of 400 people you're asking to do something. God tells me because you're the only one that's listening. So do
Mhm.
something. So pretty soon she comes stomping by me, because nobody wants to be mad all by themselves, right? So she comes by me and I grab her arm, and this is a way to bring people back into present. I grab her arm and I squeeze her a little bit and shake her a little bit. And I said, excuse me, beloved, but we might want to put more gratitude in our attitude, because I'm sure that they're looking over the plane one more time just to make sure it's safe, because we don't want to get out of the ocean and be unsafe. And so she says, well, I don't know why they don't. And I said, and then I shake her a little bit and I said, are you from Hawaii? And she said, yes. And I said, are you familiar with Huna teachings? And she said, no. And I said, well, Huna teachings tell us that when things are not working out in our life like we would like them to, we EWOP it, which means EWOP. Everything's working out perfectly. And so let's take a moment and EWOP that this is working out perfectly. And we don't have to know why. We just have a tool to help us when we don't know why it's working out this way. And so she said, well, I don't know, understand why. And I said, it's okay. Whatever it is, it's going to work out fine. We're going to be okay. It's all right. And so and I said, just take a deep breath and let's just breathe together for a minute. And then a couple of minutes later, here comes the flight attendant out. And she said, there's a red light on the plane. The mechanics can't fix it. So we're going to put you all up in a hotel for the night, and we're going to have a plane come in from the East Coast, and we'll fly you all home in the morning. And, my question was like, does it have a hot tub? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever, it doesn't change your ability to love wherever you are. Wherever you are, you're supposed to be, or you'd be someplace else. That's the way it works. And so the next morning, I see her. I'm sitting on the bus by the window, and I see her. And I had sent her prayers through the night, hoping she'd be okay and her little adrenals would be okay. And she sees me on the bus, and she comes up and she said, "Excuse me, ma'am." And I said, "Oh, I'm so happy to see you this morning. Good morning." And she said, "You need to see something." And she stuffs a bag in my face, and I look in the bag, and there's a helmet in the bag. And she said, "You're the first person in my whole life that's ever stopped me from having a grand mal seizure." And I said, well, now you know that you can stop it by e-whopping it and sending blessings and gratitude, and never have to be in a big ruckus in your system and run your adrenals to where you go into a seizure. And so I hope she never did it again, but she did learn she didn't have to do it that way, right? So you just never know. When you're present, you might be called to be of service to God because you're present and you're usable.
Yes, I love that because I feel like you're speaking to me because this morning I've been doing a lot of studying and research lately, and I just felt in my prayers that God was saying, you need to give your brain a break. Like,
That's
just be quiet for a minute. So when you said that, I was like, oh, he's telling me again that I need to just rest for a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah, it's a
I
gift.
It is, and I have loved this conversation. So for anyone who wants to go deeper, whether to buy your book, which is called, I love it, You Don't Have to Hurt Anymore, or by going to your retreat, where can they learn more about that?
So they can go to angelfarms.com. I have lots of testimonies and lots of good information there, and access to YouTube videos about different organs too, because I really love for people to understand. How much time do we have, Jamie, to if I did a really quick run through, do I have time?
Yes,
Or beyond?
absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about first kidneys are about judgment and criticism. They process 50 gallons of fluid a day. Isn't that amazing?
Gosh, it's so
They're,
amazing.
they're our final filtration system to our beautiful heart through a big internal vein called our aorta, which is the diameter of a garden hose. This is why
Mm.
kidney disease and heart disease are closely related, and why we don't want to be judgmental and critical of politics, religions, partners, ex-partners, anybody. We just want to send them blessings and then make our decision of who we walk with. Because if somebody's not willing to step into more light and more love and more joy, we can say, I'm going to love you from afar, but I don't have to agree with your behavior. Okay,
Mhm.
that's where forgiveness steps into. Okay, and next is this. We talk about the first day and the 10th day. We get into the kidneys, because the left kidney is about judging and criticizing others, and the right kidney is when we beat the crap out of ourselves. Right. So
Mm,
we got to
okay.
be make sure we don't judge and criticize ourselves either. And then the second day we get into more of this the spleen, which is another fist size organ. What does the spleen do? It's a reservoir for nursery for red blood cells and lymphocytes, so they mature before they're released in the system. And it's also our immune system communicator. So let's say we have an illness or an injury in our body, and our white count is out fighting for us. That's our army we love.
Hmm.
And then the spleen's back there getting ready with red blood cells and highly oxygenated and ready for healing. Then when the system tells the spleen that the infection or the illness is over, it shoots instructions at 238 miles per hour to your pineal gland, which sits in the middle of your brain. Your pineal gland then shoots instructions to that same massive rate of speeds to those organs, that the little adrenals that sits on top of your kidneys, and they release the natural steroid into the system to suppress white cell production. So when people have autoimmune system issues, first thing I know, they're worriers, so they're not present. They're
Uh-huh.
worrying about next, and they're also not loving themselves, because the spleen is your self-love center. So on the second day of the cleanse, I'm teaching people on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 high, how much are you going to love yourself? And if they answer a 5 or a 4 or 3, I'm like, okay, how much does God love you on that level? They all say 10. Then today you're going to fake it till you make it, and you're going to love yourself at 10, because then your immune system can get kick ass, which we need. We
Yes.
need strong immune systems. And the only thing that's going to do that is by you loving yourself and staying in present and not worrying, because then you're going to flip yourself into that fantasized emotion appearing real, because worry is fear. Same thing. Okay, and then next to that sits this beautiful little organ called a pancreas, which is a 7-inch long sea cucumber looking organ in the shape of a smile. And you know, it's written in every single religious tradition that mankind is created to have great joy, right? Not
Uh-huh.
doesn't say great sorrow, manipulation, struggle, and control. It says great joy. Your birthright is to be happy. And so your pancreas, which produces 1.5 liters of amylase behind your second molar to break down your carbohydrates, and then it releases a natural like a baking soda,
Bicarbonate? Bicarbonate?
bicarbonate, but it's like a baking soda, into your small intestine to neutralize hydrochloric acid, so the acid doesn't eat hole in your small intestine. Thank you, pancreas. And then it releases 325 different enzymes into for 23 feet of enzymatic breakdown in your small intestine, which is amazing for a 7-inch
So
organ, right?
amazing.
Isn't it
Oh my
amazing?
gosh.
I'm like, oh my God, right? And then your pancreas is, so when people go through long periods of depression and sadness, which is a choice, happiness is a choice. We make the choice every day. I'm going to be happy about this, or I'm going to send it blessings, because then we don't have to be sad about it. But then they take a picture when we start developing problems, and the pancreas look like it's a frown. It's upside down. So really what they've done is they've dumped their happiness out. And so you have to change it up and watch happy movies and be around people that make you laugh so hard you have your cheeks hurt. You want to make sure that you change your happiness up so that your pancreas course corrects, right? And I just had a lady just finished last week that doesn't have diabetes anymore, and two of them that their blood pressure regulated, so they got to came off medicines because their blood pressure went perfectly low. We don't want to be on blood pressure medicine when we have low blood pressure, and lots of other things. Two of them, arthritis gone out of their hands, and anyway, all these things that are autoimmune system issues. So because it course corrected. And then we move into the liver, which is the anchor center, which we talked about already, and spleen, pancreas, the lungs. So the lungs are huge, and the heart. So that you have two huge lungs, and they're so amazing that if you spread them out at the surface base of a tennis court.
Oh my
I
goodness.
know. And so the next time you have a chance to walk around a tennis court, you might admire your lungs really well. So when we breathe in, it's called inspiration. This is science, by the way.
Hmm.
And when you exhale, it's called expiration. And so you know that we breathe 23,000 breaths a day. Isn't that cool?
That's
That
so
means we have 23,000 opportunities a day to inspire ourselves and others. That's what the lungs are about, your purpose. Why are you here? What are you going to do with that? And your purpose is to love. That's your purpose. Everybody's purpose is the same one too, by the way. Your left lung is a little bit smaller than your right lung because it makes a little puka or a little hole in your heart, in your lung, in order for your heart to reside. Okay, so they're the only two major organs that sits above your diaphragm. The rest of them are supported and protected and nurtured and yummed up every time you breathe. Your organs under your diaphragm. So the heart also is a fist-sized organ that pumps 2,000 gallons of blood for you every day.
Oh my gosh.
It never stops.
It
Oh my
never
gosh.
stops the miracles.
And it's a miracle. And at 48 miles per hour, which is faster than any horse can run, through 60,000 miles of circulation, which is enough to go around our earth more than twice in every one of your beautiful bodies. Isn't that amazing?
That is so
It's
amazing.
so amazing. And so your heart is all about grief. And when we do grief, like someone who has died and crossed over,
Mhm.
and it's the things unsaid, then our heart will start having grief inside of it. And so we want to make sure that we know that we're all eternal beings, even when we cross over. What Deepak Chopra calls death when you've imagined yourself into another space and time, which I think is beautiful.
It is
But
beautiful.
we know that we've lived before, we live now, and we all we do is our bodies are just a beautiful, powerful, magical design in order for us to show up and love more than we ever did ever before, because that's our goals. We want to love, make this the greatest lifetime ever by loving more than we ever did before, and loving more today than we did yesterday. So that's a good start. And then, but the heart really wants us to love, and the ancients called the heart the seat of consciousness, which is the power of enlightenment and love. And so what we want to do is understand that it can't have grief inside of it because of somebody who's died, and our loved ones don't want us to have a heart attack and come and join them. Our loved ones want us to be happy and to take the love that we share together and make it grow inside of us and touch a lot more lives. So their lives are a gift to get bigger in our love, not smaller and sadder and grieving over it. So it's really important, that we tell people that we love them when they're in front of us, and don't
Mhm.
miss a moment. When you have a partner, make sure that you tell them every day that you love them, and don't miss the opportunity, because you don't want to go, I wish I would have told them, instead of like,
Yeah.
no, tell them now, and fill your heart up. Excuse me, with that. But don't let heart disease take you out because of grief.
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, the kidneys too, I forgot to tell you too, I want people to know the kidneys were known by the ancients as the reins of humans, or the mother of all organs. And so we
Mhm.
want to understand, we want to rein ourselves back on to a beauty road of loving, and make sure that you go to bed at night and go, wow, it's been a great day because I loved, and I loved, and I did my very best to love everything that was in my path that day. And that's really our goal every day. How do we love today?
Yeah.
Thank you
I
for
love it.
another day to love.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Like I said, I lost my mom. Well, I didn't lose her. She died on August 1st. And and I have had moments of crying and grief and stuff.
Yeah, that's
But
normal.
Yeah. But what I've really felt was my mom and I were very close and we called all the time. There was nothing left unsaid.
Yeah,
And I got to
exactly.
spend so much time with her. And I honestly feel like she visits me all the time. I have dreams about her in which we have conversations. And if I have good news, which I would always call her, I just say, like I've caught myself going, oh, I should call my mom. Oh, she's not here. But then I go, oh, but she's right here. Mom, you saw that happen. You know what I mean? So there's an
Yeah,
element of joy too,
yeah,
that knowing that I said the things and
yeah,
that
yeah.
we were, that
Yeah,
it
my husband just passed away of 45 years too, and
was.
you know, I am so that what really helps us all through all that is the gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
because I we had such an amazing relationship. He saw me at a Tuesday night auction in Idaho and said, I'm going to marry that girl, and on our second date we talked about getting married. And so we you know, all I see so many people who never know what it's like to have a long-term relationship, and how grateful I am that's helped me make it through the just the gratitude. And that every day, did I tell you today how much I love you? And he, if you know, it was a daily conversation. And so when he passed, I knew that it was nothing was unsaid. And so my heart could go, wow, he knew, and I knew how much he loved me, and my heart feels so great and healthy because of that. So that's where we want to take all that too.
Well, and I love that you said that because I was told on our wedding day, my husband and I, someone said, always tell each other every day why you love each other. And we literally took that to heart. So
Yeah,
every
okay.
single night, even when we've been not liking each other at the moment, we always go deep and say the reason why we love and appreciate. And I really feel it's changed
Fantastic.
everything
Yep.
because I
Yep.
always feel loved and appreciated, even if
Yeah.
we're disagreeing on something.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
So
is okay, because I tell people all the time, you didn't want to get married to yourself.
yeah,
So you
absolutely.
want to have the sharp edges rubbed off in a great relationship so that you can become the diamond underneath.
Hmm.
And so we like the you know, like I'm always like, go to this place, and my husband's like, oh, we haven't been down that road before, and so he slowed me down and I speed him up, and we had a perfect
Exactly what my
you
husband
know.
does. We go on walks and he like changes the pattern. I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
going on a walk. I'm going
yeah.
here. And he's like,
It's so
but
great.
if we take a left, and I'm like, what? And so he had to teach
So
me
wonderful. Yeah.
a little bit.
Spice of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I
Yeah.
want to thank you for this conversation, and I'm sure so many people are going to benefit from it. And I'm just grateful that you were able to share not only your experience, but um, hope for us, and as we're navigating this life, and if it comes down to just loving and finding
Just
the way to love a little bit deeper every day.
yep.
All
Yep.
right, well, that ends our episode for today. So for those of you who visit every day, happy digesting until next time.
If this episode encouraged you or offered practical insight, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Leaving a review, subscribing, and sharing with even one friend helps more people discover this message, and Jamie is truly grateful for your support. Be sure to check the show notes for free downloads, helpful resources, and a link to join Jamie's private Facebook group for extra support and community that blends practical health with biblical truth. Just a reminder, Jamie isn't a doctor, so always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your health plan.